Hi, today I'm going to talk about the issue of belief and disbelief. A lot of people, they think a person, he just hears about Islam or hears about God or hears a proof for God or for Islam, and then he doesn't believe in it. He's automatically a disbeliever per the terms of the Quran. But the terms of Quran, because if you look at the Quran, Moses, he proved a lot to the Pharaoh through just words. But the Quran didn't say that the truth came to Pharaoh and its people with those words. It wasn't until he did two clear miracles. It was the second miracle that it said that now the truth has come to them, because it was reinforced by a higher miracle. And so they could see once his hands became a light and stuff after he cast his staff, and it destroyed the lies, and his hands turned into a bright light that didn't harm anyone's eyes. It was then that the clear proof became apparent, and it was then that people would be really stubborn if they disbelieved. But even then, like, they were still given more signs to see if they were going to be stubborn, and they ended up being stubborn, most of them. But the magicians themselves, who caused hallucinations by sorcery, they recognized what Moses did was beyond capability of normal humans, and it was only something. It's only a power that God would grant. So they realized that, and they submitted. So, but they didn't. But the words Moses spoke about with reasoning and everything, even though that was true, and it proved that Pharaoh wasn't a god, and their whole religion was wrong and everything, it didn't mean they were disbelievers for rejecting. And a lot of the Quranic verses, they clarify what's meant by disbelief, and it's pretty clear that it's only when a person will never believe, is so stubborn towards the signs, even if angels come to them, even if God talks to them, even if, like, every sign, every miracle shown, they won't believe. That's when a person is a disbeliever. And to call another human that without knowledge is very wrong. And there's a verse in the Quran that says, "Don't go around the earth. Don't When you travel on the earth, don't go to a person and say you're not a believer, because for all you know, they believe in everything that's meant to believe. They believe in the light. They understand it with their perspective. Even if they're atheists, they might believe in morality, but they don't know how it's linked to God. Or And everybody's confused in their own state. If we weren't confused and we were just guided and reason was good enough, we wouldn't need prophets, right? So the fact that God sends us prophets and guides to help us on our way out of error. And yeah, it's not upon us to judge people as disbelief. Yes, the Quran calls certain people disbelievers, but it called them after they saw miracles, after they out of envy started a war against Muhammad and tried to kill Muhammad, even though that was a miracle in itself when they tried to kill Muhammad, and they couldn't, because the spider web was built on a cave that they thought, oh well, they had trackers and they tracked his footsteps and everything, but then like, oh no, this is not true. And so everything was proven to them, like the moon split, everything. Like, they were very stubborn, and it was God who decided, like, okay, I'll label these people disbelievers. But it was general. It was a general verse, like, as in, like, the people fighting you are disbelievers, and it was those who were forbidden to have love and friendship, only because they were fighting you because of your religion. So it's not only like, it didn't even say like, we're forbidden to have friendships with disbelievers. It was saying it's because they hated you so much, and they hated you for your religion, and you saw the vehement hate from them, and it was apparent they were disbelievers. But if you go to a non-Muslim, you're like, oh well, you don't believe, I'm going to hate you and everything. That's a very wrong interpretation of Quran. Um, it's a very bad interpretation to even tell any human being, whether they're atheist, whether they're Christian, whether they're Hindu, whatever they are, to say that you are clearly a disbeliever, and because you didn't believe in the proofs I presented you about Islam, or you read the Quran, you didn't believe, because there's mistranslations, there's lots of misconceptions. Another thing to keep in mind is in Nahj al-Balagha, the Imam Ali says the Prophet came when there was no clear path. And that's a very calculative statement, because um, the religion was there, like the religion of Islam was sort of there, but it wasn't there in a clear way. There was the Christians, they carried the Gospels, the Jews, everybody, they carried holy books, but even though the holy books were there, the way they were taught and the way they were interpreted and the way they were seen by society, it felt like it was just a bunch of stories, because people didn't make sense of them. They didn't see their lesson, they didn't see the proofs in them. And so the even though these holy books were there and they contain a lot of proofs, it said the path was unclear. That's what Imam Ali says. He says there was no clear path, there was no distinct, even though these holy books are there and there are other holy books around the earth and there's people that follow the guidance, it wasn't clear at all, because the religion wasn't clear. And that's one of the purposes of the Quran and Muhammad being sent and his Ahlul Bayt, is to clarify the Quran, and to clarify to the extent that who's going to perish is going to perish on clear proof, and who's going to be guided will be guided on clear proof. And so that's one of the purposes of the Quran, is to clarify the truth, and it's to and when I say like somebody's not a disbeliever, it doesn't mean everybody who does evil is going to be saved. No, then people are assessed to their deeds. So if a person most likely without faith, without following guidance, they will follow shaitan, and that's what the Quran says. It says like, what wasn't for God's mercy and His grace, most of you would have followed Satan, except for a few, right? So it's a mercy, it's a compassion from God, but um, at the same time, it doesn't give us that license to degrade other humans and say, oh, well, you guys are the lowest of the low and you are the most vile and you don't listen and your ears are clouded, and you apply all these verses that apply to a particular people who rejected miracles, who rejected clear proof, who rejected the Quran when it was clarified verse after verse. When they were revealed, it was all clarified by the Prophet. He had clarifications, they had a context, and it was all clear, the religion, and it was clarified by him. You cannot apply this term to a time right now when the truth is not as clear as it was then. So we have to be very careful with the term disbelief and disbelievers, and it doesn't matter who it is. Yeah, because even the Quran, when it says like people don't believe in the people who don't believe in the hereafter, it was after the hereafter was proven. So there was logical proofs why there would be a next world, and there was logical proofs for God. Like right in the beginning, it brought the arguments for that God surely sees the humans, and um, like it provided arguments for God's existence, basically, that and Muhammad would clarify that, Imam Ali would clarify that, and so they provided clear arguments for everything, and then it was condemned if they disbelieved it. So it was in layers. First, they were supposed to believe in a hereafter and stuff, and then more concurrently, they were supposed to believe in one God and not many gods, and so everything was proven to them by layers, and it was condemned in layers. And then eventually, when it became very clear prophethood, and that was condemned, and then wilayah of Ahl al-Bayt became more clear that this is the way God guides humans, is through guided chosen families, and that became more clear. Then that became condemned, and it was in the future, the gods saw it, that could become unclear in Quran through dark magic, through false interpretations, through hard hearts, through a culture of disbelief. So Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wa alihi, he did a speech on Ghadir and we only have partial of that speech. We don't have it in full, but he said, I'm leaving you two weighty things, Quran and my family. And then in that context, he talked about the wilayah of Ali, and so it's very clear. But at the same time, even that, like if what's in the Quran is even like is very clear, and it could be misclarified. It could be become ambiguous through dark methods, and that the Prophet had to lay this foundation. Even that message could become unclear. So we have to be very forbearing, very vigilant, not to call anybody a disbeliever. Not like just go bring the Ghadir speech and say, oh well, you're a disbeliever because you don't accept the message. And we don't judge who's a disbeliever and a believer. I mean, that's not for us to judge. When Imam Mahdi comes and he brings the clear proofs of the Quran and the Sunnah, and he revives everything. Then he tells us, these people fighting us, they're disbelievers. They're just fighting us out of envy and everything. Then okay, at that point we could call those people disbelievers. But up to that point, we shouldn't call anyone a disbeliever.